Let's talk a little bit about the difference between the SAs and the SRLs. You know, there's a confusion that people have. A couple of years back, because of tax reasons, I think a lot of people were opening up and they were doing SAs, which is called Sociedad Anónima. And now, for tax benefits, or there's a change in the law, people are now are doing more business as SRL, which for us Americans is a comparable to a limited liability corporation. What can you explain a little bit about that?
At least for Costa Rican tax purposes and business purposes, makes no difference if you want to do business with an SA or a LLC. Both type of companies are taxed under the same rates. The fact that you want to use one or the other has to do more with the country of origin where the investor lives. Or I know, for example, that for U.S. purposes is more practical and simpler to use a Costa Rican LLC than a corporation. More for tax purposes that you don't have to understand an LLC is considered like a
limited liability corporation.
Yes. But you don't have to. You basically you tax as it was your personal income. You don't have to put a company between yourself and the final owner.
So you're paying. So basically, what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, is that you're paying under an SRL, you'd be paying one tax combined. Is that what? Is that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you see, that's the general rule. All the companies, U.S. companies doing business in Costa Rica, the first thing they do is they have been operating with an SA, they change the company into an SRL or LLC. But again, from the Costa Rican point of view, we recommend both companies, more depending the type of ownership. For example, if this is your personal business, you don't need to have a SA with a board director because basically you're taking decisions for yourself.
Right.
So in those cases, we recommend a more simpler kind of company, which is the LLC. You just need to have one manager, and that's it. With the SA, you need to have a board director, a president, a controller. So it's a more elaborated type of company, and depending more what kind of way you want to operate, is that we recommend one or the other. But for example, for people holding property in Costa Rica, LLC is the best because they just put themselves as directors and that's it.
It's more simple process.
It's more simpler. But in any case, there are no restrictions for foreigners to occupy positions in the companies. Makes no difference. They don't need to have residency. In that sense, for doing business, again, the residency is not an obstacle at all.
Very good. Let's change channel here a second. Let's go into a big topic, which is healthcare.
Okay.
You know, you hear and you understand from a lot of foreigners that Costa Rica has a fantastic healthcare system. The understanding is that healthcare is at a much lower rate in terms of cost as opposed to the United States, for instance. What would be, for a foreigner coming here and investing and residing here, what would be the steps to be able to get some sort of health care for them, that they would have a good coverage and be able to feel at peace of mind that they've got something sound? But what would they need to do?
Okay, in the first place, there are private hospitals and public hospitals. There are private doctors and public doctors that work for these public hospitals. You can access any private hospital as just by going and requiring their services and pay what they ask for. That I understand what they charge is much less than what you pay in many other countries.
Right.
And that's why many people just come to Costa Rica to receive plastic surgery or dental work. So living in Costa Rica, you have access to those advantages as well. So that's the first thing. Normally we don't use, even though I'm covered by Social Security, normally I don't use those services because we prefer to go to private hospitals.
Right.
But again, it's very important to know that I'm covered by the Social Security, because major services or operations is better to do with the Social Security, because they have the best equipment, the best doctors, everything, the highest level of equipment and facilities are in the public hospitals, because they're very expensive and they're the only ones that can afford to get this kind of equipment. So basically that's the first kind of people that can just pay for the private services. That's normal, that's what many people do.
So if a foreigner comes here, he has, at his choice, he would have the choice to go to use the public healthcare system here, or he can opt out and go to a private
Exactly.
physician.
Yes, but once you become a Costa Rican resident, it's mandatory for you to become part of the public healthcare system. If you use it or not, that's really up to you.
When you say mandatory, does that mean that part of your income or whatever you have to contribute? What does that mean?
That means that they will set like a minimum fee that you have to pay every month to the Social Security. It can be a couple of $100s, $150, $200. Normally, retired people, that's what they pay. And that means that you have access to all the public services in Costa Rica. I have seen cases of clients that they spend months in the hospital, and sometimes they start in a private hospital and they say, sorry, but now moving to the public system, I know I cannot afford to be any longer in the private hospital. So, and they will not. They will not provide a bad service because you're spending a lot of time there. It's like a life insurance, knowing that you have that kind of support.
Right. Well, it sounds like it's extra support for those that can afford it.
Exactly, but it's mandatory. Once you have residents in Costa Rica, they want for people to contribute to our Social Security system. If you use it or not,
that's your choice. Right, it's a choice. It's a choice.
But it's great. I see no complaints from anybody knowing that they have that possibility, because again, the biggest kind of attention that you need, or the more expensive, you can look at the public hospitals, and they have great doctors and equipment. Yes, and also we have insurance companies. Here we have private insurance companies, public insurance companies. You can get a medical insurance.
What would be a typical, this is an example so people can get an idea of a private insurance company that covers healthcare,
yes.
your basic benefits, what would that cost?
Yes,
for a foreigner?
People look for private insurance because the difference is that you can decide where you want to receive the treatment, for example. So normally people like the private hospitals, because obviously they're nicer, you have a private room. And
Right.
So people look for medical insurance, more for that, but in a family of, let's say, 5, with which includes international attention if you require, because the system is done that if our system in Costa Rica, our healthcare in Costa Rica is not allowed to provide a good solution to what you're suffering, it will even include the possibility to get attention somewhere else. So insurance like that, it's about $500,000. That's how much they will cover.
So they have a cap of $500,000
Yes.
for any major medical emergency?
The one I have, for example, is like that. It's a family of 5. I pay about $3,500 per month, per year, sorry.
Per year?
Yes.
$3,500 per year. Okay, so a $500,000 cap, in the States, it doesn't sound like much because the prices of anything medical related is so exorbitant. But like, for instance, let's just give an example. If you go in for dental cleaning or a checkup, let's say you go in to your doctor, to a private physician for a checkup, what would that cost?
I don't know, my wife is the one that takes care of this thing. I just pay the bills, but but I know it's not something
Exorbitant.
you don't hear. You see people getting operations, very severe heart operations,
Right,
and you hear big numbers, but never in the way you hear in the U.S. Here.
right,
It's
right.
reasonable, but no, I'm not the one to give you prices like that.
That's okay, that's
I
okay.
can tell you it's not something that is scares you.
So,
No,
so
that is
basically,
not
so
my concern.
basically, what you're saying is that $500,000, to get to $500,000 would be very, very, I mean, you can get to it, but it would be very, very difficult.
Yes. And also with the Social Security, not the insurance, but the Social Security, there's no cap there. It's simply the attention that you need, they will provide. There's no like an amount limit with the Social Security, not with the insurance. Just for you to know.
Understood.
Obviously, people that has their own private insurance or medical programs, they can use it in Costa Rica. All these private hospitals that I mentioned, they accept foreign insurance companies. So,
Okay,
so
okay.
it doesn't mean that you need, if you're in Costa Rica, you need Costa Rican insurance.
Insurance.
You can, if you're okay with what you have.
Right,
Actually, I heard that there are some insurance companies that they will tell the clients to come to Costa Rica. If they accept to come to Costa Rica for certain treatments,
well, American insurance
Yes.
companies are requesting their citizens or residents to come to Costa Rica to have the procedure done here.
exactly, and they will pay all the expenses, like a small vacation. And
Right.
they will not charge any deductible.
The deductible, so they wipe out the deductible, is what you're saying. And,
So-
and of
so that
course,
gives you an
at
idea
a
of-
fraction of the price.
That gives you an idea. They prefer to incur on all these expenses, and they will save a lot if they do it here versus if they do it in the US. So,
Very interesting,
I don't know how many companies are doing that, but I'm sure that's been done.
very interesting, very interesting. Let's change the topic to a little bit of real estate.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a stigma out there, a concern, where people have, like you mentioned a very valid point. You know, when you come to Costa Rica, it's important to have legal representation. It's important to understand the proper channels before you just go and buy something or incorporate or do in any country. Or, you know,
Yes,
there have been a lot of foreign investors here coming and actually not doing their due diligence and buying property from individuals that they claimed they were the owners, and they sold the property, and then the owner finds out later or much later that they bought that property from the wrong person. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, that shows that the person that suffered that situation or want to save in lawyers or I don't know what, but they didn't do his homework.
Due diligence, right,
Yes,
right.
due diligence is important in any way because Costa Rica, our system is a little different to the US. Here, our registry, our property registry, basically guarantees that the information that they're providing is correct, is binding and is valid. In other words, if I go to the registry and it shows that you own this building, there's no reason for me to doubt that that's reality facts. In the US, I understand there has to be like a title study. In other words, there's some information that you have to evaluate yourself to come to the conclusion that you're the owner.
Right.
Costa Rica is not like that. The registry guarantees that whoever they show the owner is the owner. That means that they process all the deeds, they see that complies with all the requisites. So that by itself is a good guarantee. Then lawyers in Costa Rica, we're also notaries. And in Costa Rica, the notary has more or less a similar purpose as the title companies. Here we're going to grant a transfer of a property, we're responsible to check that everything is in good order.
When you say responsible, let's talk
Legally
about
responsible.
legally responsible is what
We
you're saying.
have a bond because
That's very
the
important.
authority we have in Costa Rica, if two people come to my office and this one sells to this one, I have to be sure that the person that is buying something that is real and is what he expects. I have to protect both parties. When in that case, as a notary, I'm not acting for the seller or for the buyer. That's very different to the US. Here, again, we have a responsibility to see that the business is done in the right way, which is basically the creation of a mortgage or a title transfer. We cannot grant documents that cannot be properly recorded.
Understood.
So in that sense, we charge our fees. We're more or less like title insurance company because we have the obligation to see that everything okay. Costa Rica, we have title insurance companies, but that's more like for foreigners that are used to do business in certain ways. So if they want on top of that to have that kind of insurance,
It's kind of like an extra layer
yes,
of
and
protection.
that's okay. That's
But
great.
basically, you're saying it's really not necessary, because you're bound in liability, you're legally liable.
Exactly. We can lose our license. Everything can happen really. So we go a little far. We go deeper. We cannot these days trust basically the information of the registry, even though we know it's very accurate. We always go the extra mile to see that when is that the seller purchased, check some things, make some calls. Will not hurt at all. So especially if you don't know who is the seller or something like that, we have to use our whole instincts. But at least in my 24 years practice, I have never been witness to a fraud or something like that. Somebody claiming to be the owner of a property that is not the owner and things like
Well, that's good.
that. You hear some news in the papers, but those are very isolated cases. It happens as any. You cannot do anything against fraud or people that are a lawyer, for example, a notary that is not acting according to the law. Just imagine the damage that he can do. So there's no real protection against bad faith and people trying to do fraud. Really. So
Right.
and that's why you have to have your lawyer
Do the due diligence,
to look for your
right.
interest.
Well, it's not only just due diligence, it's by hiring you and doing a closing with an attorney, you're basically buying insurance. Because
Exactly.
you're legally bounded to the title that you're handing over. It's clean and it
Exactly.
belongs to whoever the transaction is being purchased from. So
Exactly.
that's really peace of mind.
And it's not only title itself. You can buy a property, but it's important that when you buy a property is that for you to know that you will be able to do with that property what you
What you would like to, right.
So as an artist, I can tell you, it has no liens, you can buy the property, but if you come and try to build, a factory, the municipality can tell you, sorry, but the zoning will not allow you to do that. So at least we tell our clients to look for advice from engineers or consultants if they want specific uses for certain properties that are not, let's say, inside a commercial center or something like that you know already that they serve this purpose. So our obligation is to guide the clients, check this, do that, if they want to do it or not.
It's up to them.
That's
Sure,
right.
right. No, that's understood.